Hello, everyone, and let's talk about tired and wired. Tired and wired, hot and cold, up and down, motivated and lethargic and no energy. When I describe the high and the low, or what we call a sawtooth pattern, that sawtooth pattern is very commonly mistaken for mood disorders, using bipolar as one of them. That doesn't mean someone can't be bipolar. It doesn't mean that someone doesn't suffer mental illness. But very commonly, I will have a client who is one day excitable and the next day stays in bed. Next day is full of energy, next day is lethargic, anxious, maybe overwhelmed. The next day has great ideas, I'm gonna do this, and they have great intentions. I have a plan, I wrote it out, and the next day they're irritable, sad, depressed, no energy, kind of ominous, negative thoughts, etc. Regardless of the sawtooth, what we have to immediately understand is this person is consistently inconsistent. Consistently inconsistent. We can depend on and bank on that they are going to be irregular. So with this labile mood, it could be mental health, could be mental illness, it could be stress, it could be metal that's in their body, it could be parasites and mold that's affecting their energy levels. It could be a number of things. But let's talk about stress for a second. People who go through this first stage of stress, the alarm stage, are really ramped up. They're irritable, they're high strung, and they feel pressured around the clock. Then they go through this tired and wired and that sawtooth pattern. And it's really complicated, it's confusing for people, particularly the person suffering themselves, because in 1 minute they feel like they've got it, and the next minute they are not only not following through, but their brain turns to mush. They have this like foggy brain, and they're tired right here in the frontal lobes, right here in your prefrontal cortex, and they just can't get with it. And then they write down a plan. They get a piece of paper, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. Then they sit there and they think, all right, I just need to close my eyes for like 30 minutes and then I can get up and then I'll be fine. And then 2 hours goes by and then they're frustrated they didn't get anything done. So it makes them irritable. So then they go eat something that helps them not be irritable, but now it makes them more tired. So now their irritability is spiking cortisol, the stress hormone that elevates them with energy because you get a surge of glucose in your bloodstream. But the energy is now angry energy. It's now aggressive energy. They're pissed. They're ready to break stuff. They're just cursing up a storm and they're not getting anything done. So, in the United States, since the year 2000, we go, that guy's bipolar. But we also have to look at the precursors to a lot of this. Is there healthy eating? Is the person taking the right supplements? Is the person on a sleep schedule and getting full sleep recovery? Has the person ever had a neck injury that could be causing the atlas, the top bone on the neck, to be turned and blocking blood flow to the brain and preventing cerebral spinal fluid from leaving the brain nightly to detox the brain, because that can cause a lot of these irregular patterns. There's just a number of details, or what I call insults, that can be causing these type of dilemmas. So let's just put it under the world of mental health. When we talk about mental health or mental wellness, we're talking about creating a predictable life for yourself. Even if you are the person terribly suffering in the way that I just described, up and down, hot and cold, whatever it is, I'm going to tell you that the first intervention that we're going to use is to get you on a schedule. We're going to try to structure your sleep. We're going to try to structure your diet. We're definitely going to build in and structure some exercise. We're going to structure some supplementation to be built in, and then some form of mindfulness, whether it's havening, Havening. Go to havening.com, look it up, see what havening is, yoga, or breathing, stretching, relaxing in a mindful state, going to church, building your spirituality, just having gratitude, thinking of 3 good things about my day that I can be grateful for, There's a number of things we can do on a structural intervention to get things started. Now, clinicians, when you're a clinician and you're watching this, follow me on this. We know as clinicians that if our client is at risk for hurting themselves, we will very commonly admit them into a hospital because they have suggested or expressed to us somehow, physically, verbally, whatever, a combination of all, that I don't want to say they can't be trusted, but they do not have the faculties to be reliable and that they won't harm themselves. So when we put our patient in a hospital or a residential program or an overnight program that contains or sustains them, think about what we're doing. We're creating a structured intervention. It's structured in the way you go, what time you get up and go to bed. It's structured that you're not going to leave the facility. It's structured that, in some states you can sign yourself out, but let's assume that they're at risk and they're not able to sign themselves out. They are structured at the times that they can eat. They're structured at the times they receive individual and group therapy. They're structured in the way in the time that their therapist sees them and what time they see their psychiatrist, if meds are being dispensed. Everything is on a structure. That is why structure, for me, is the number one intervention that is always applied. For people who are not sleeping well, as an example, I very commonly hear others say, well, take melatonin. Well, you're taking melatonin, but how do we know that melatonin is the answer? Why don't we try to structure your sleep to first see how closely you can stick to the circadian rhythm on a sleep schedule? Without looking to see how far you deviate from the sleep schedule, how do we know what we're even trying to treat, what we're trying to care for? Before we even offer melatonin, let's structure the person, measure it, and then see what our options are. But the information we gain from measuring allows us to understand our options. So when we think about mental health, we're talking about the qualitative and quantitative measure of the relationship between or among the brain, the hormonal system, and the gut. And when we have a calibration that is meaningful and responsible among the three, we have wellness, we have resilience, we have immunity. When we do not have calibration, or one of the systems, let's just say the hormonal system, is out of calibration in itself, by itself, it's going to throw off the gut, it's going to throw off the brain, and now everything becomes out of calibration, or everything falls out of line. When we are building structure into someone's lifestyle, we have to build structure into their work style. It just can't be only in their lifestyle. Or here's another one. People will say to me, I'm great and I'm structured when I'm at work. Then I come home and it all falls apart. Well, that's why people like myself exist. When we are health coaches, even practitioners, clinicians, a number of my colleagues, physicians, no matter what your credential or how you're vetted, when we are used to assist other people as interventionists, we look to see why are they able to do it at work? Why is structure able to be achieved at work? Now, some people, maybe it's not able to be achieved. So we know that they need an entire makeover in the world of structure. But some people will say to me, I can do it at work because I know I have no chance of deviating the system there. Well, why are you able to deviate the system at home? And we have to investigate that. Maybe it's work for them. I remember being in college my freshman year. I remember studying at 12 o'clock midnight till 3 o'clock in the morning, and my roommate saying to me, man, you're never going to pass the test studying at this time at night. And I'd say, no, I'll be fine. And then I would have an 8 o'clock class. I got only a couple hours sleep, and I'd go in and I'd get an A in the class or on the test. And that reinforced that behavior. I'd have been better off failing that test, because what it has done is allowed me to believe and has reinforced the negative habit of staying up late cramming for an exam the night before, only a few hours before the exam. Well, people who suffer a lack of structure often have mental health issues because they're always stressed and they're tired and they're wired, because they go from being high performing to not meeting expectations. Energy, lethargic and tired. Excitable, irritable, miserable, and angry. So when we see that labile mood or that sawtooth pattern or that predictably unpredictable function, we have to say to ourselves, where do we start? What is the first intervention we can apply? And the first intervention should not necessarily be medication, because we have to create an intervention to see why is it measurably that the person isn't able to meet the expectations. The expectation I always strive for first is, can you follow the circadian rhythm in your sleep? Next one is, can you put your phone down before you go to bed? Do you have a set bedtime going to sleep? You should be in bed by 9, expecting to fall asleep by 10. After 2 weeks, someone is in bed, they go to bed at 9, they don't fall asleep till 3 o'clock in the morning, and the phone was left downstairs. We have a really good insight that, man, there is a precursor that is insulting the body, expressing itself through the fact that the person is wide awake for several hours, even though they're disciplined right now and laying down, trying to promote sleep. Then we look to see how they wake up in the morning. Some people wake up in the morning on time, but they're lethargic. They wake up on time, they're foggy brain. They wake up on time and they just can't think. They just can't. They don't feel foggy brain. Their frontal lobes are still asleep. So when you look at how we assess this, and particularly for people who are tired and wired, so they're wired, revved up, and then they're down for the count, tapping out. Tired and wired is a very, very well understood function of our bodies in its performance when we are super stressed, and we are so stressed that our bodies are so worn out that it's actually begging to go to sleep, but it lays there and it can't. And why is that? Typically because your stress hormones are activated, you're pushing too much cortisol, and your cortisol is keeping you out of your circadian rhythm. And now that you have been off your rhythm and you're actually against what is considered your rhythm, your body is right now resisting, which the tired and wired is in the resistance stage. It's resisting any healthy form of living because it's living by the moment. It's actually living in the moment. So we call that a limbic function. It's in survival mode. So before we categorize everyone as being mentally ill, a lot of us, I'm going to tell you that most of us, particularly with COVID, can appreciate what tired and wired is. We were all living it through COVID. And if you're still living it, my heart goes out to you because I understand that and I feel for you. Now, I've developed supplements under the Dr. Buzz Naturals that helps promote that tired or need to be tired at night, and then getting up and having that booster of energy in the morning to help correct people to get into that circadian rhythm. But we have to always look to measure ourselves against what is appropriate or what should be considered normal, which would be the circadian rhythm, which would be a structural intervention that would include our eating, our sleeping, our exercise, etc. And you may have a large number of details in your life that should be structured, even sitting down, having a set dinner time, keywords, with your family where you're not allowed to talk about anything negative. Whoa, how about that? Versus eating, everyone's in a different part of the house, eating on their own, or no set dinner time. So structure is the key. Your brain wants to be structured. Don't confuse that you're in really, really bad shape and that you're falling apart or you're severely mentally ill because you're just not structured. And if you don't know how to structure, get a health coach, get somebody like Buzz. There's tons of us out there to help support you, to guide you, to structure you, to coach you, to model for you, and to reinforce for you so you can get back on your feet, so you can get well and build resilience and build immunity so you can live to be as old as you possibly can and see your children grow and see your children's children grow. And my heart goes out to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being an ambassador of my tools, and God bless you.